Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Startup Operators Weekly Roundup. The Weekly Roundup is a show for people who like to stay updated from the latest developments of the Indian startup ecosystem. If the first time you're listening to our show, then do consider subscribing to our channel for more similar content. And having said that, folks, we hope you're having a great Diwali. Very happy Diwali, Roshan.
Happy Diwali, everyone. Fantastic time. After 2 years of muted celebrations, I can see a lot of splendor around. So, yeah, very happy Diwali to all of you.
Well, yeah, and I don't think the Diwali could have had a better start, especially after the match India played against Pakistan.
Oh, yeah, fantastic match. I didn't catch it, but I mean, I just saw the highlights. Last ball win, India
Yeah.
Pakistan, you can't ask for more. Seriously. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and even for the startups, right? I think as compared to the last week, funding has increased by 4x from $91 million to I think $419 million. So that's a great sign, at least for the time being, right? But we'll only know in the weeks to come to see whether we are out of this whole funding winter.
Well, I don't think we're out of the funding winter anytime soon. I think the macro conditions are still pretty frail, I would say, right? And people are expecting a rate hike again, and this is going to be massive, right? The previous one was the highest rate hike in about 30 years. This is going to beat that apparently. And so a lot of pressure top down, right? I mean, investors have asked portfolio startups to plan for a couple of years of runway at least. This means, a lot of cost cutting as well, right? I mean, marketing budgets for sure will get cut, hiring will be frozen, and everyone's on a sort of a wait and watch mode. In fact, I mean, I was, just saw on my Twitter timeline that Elon Musk has said it'll take up until spring of 2024 for some sense of normalcy to return. It's a hard thing. I mean, the US has to sort of engineer some sort of a recession right now to arrest inflation, and it's going to have a ripple effect, right? Like they say, I mean, if the US sneezes, everyone catches a cold, and especially true for any kind of private equity or startup action for sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on the whole startup starting to focus on profitability. I mean, and this is the most apparent within the edtech space,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we saw Byju's last week. We saw Byju's announce that it's laying off at least 5% of its workforce, and this week they have raised a $250 million round, which was also the largest round of this week. And along with that, again, there's more positive news from the industry. In contrast to that, we also have billionaire philanthropist Shiv Nadar, who won the major international lifetime achievement award. We'll be talking about that. And CCI has passed its ruling on the alleged malpractices by Google. So more on that in this week's roundup. Stay tuned. So we'll get to the Byju's news in a bit. TikTok has emerged as the world's top grossing application as they announced in the September quarter results. Total consumer spending has been a whopping $915 million. Now this brings the total consumer spendings on the platform close to $6.5 billion, right? And along with that, it has also been the most downloaded app of the quarter, which is ahead of Meta, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger, and even the likes of Snapchat and all. Now, this is some amazing, amazing growth, and all
Yeah.
of this is happening while it does not even have India as a market.
Yeah, I mean, phenomenal actually. TikTok, I think unanimously is the number one best consumer internet app for entertainment in the world right now. I mean, they're a $300 billion company. Apparently, that's what their valuation is at. I mean, they're doing some buybacks in the private market, right? And 300 billion, and that's down from $400 billion last year. Which is pretty crazy, right? I mean, the kind of astronomical valuations that we're reaching, and for good reason as well. I mean, TikTok not just reach. I mean, they have phenomenal engagement, right? And they just got it right. I mean, they knew that people didn't give a shit about people, right, appearing on their
Yeah.
timeline, right? That whole Facebook ethos of okay. See what your friends and family are up to or is long gone, and everyone was slowly moving away from that, right? I mean, and TikTok just came in like a sort of a renegade and said that screw that. I mean, you want to see good content, we'll give you the best of the best content from across the world, right? And very very sticky user engagement as well. I mean, for the few months that I used TikTok, and I also uploaded videos on TikTok as well, right, of me singing. I mean, it was very addictive. It was super addictive, and I never thought that I will be watching the things that I watched on TikTok, right? Like that chicken leg piece guy, for example.
Can you do a TikTok reel for the audience?
Sure, why not? I mean, we should actually, if only I was cool enough. But Yeah, I mean, fantastic. And you've seen the TikTokification of all timelines across social apps, right? I mean, Twitter, for instance, I mean, when I log into Twitter, I don't even know half the people on my timeline, you know. It just curates good content. But there is also a sort of a downside to all of this. I think there's a sort of a negative connotation as well with, how it's being used as well, right? For example, the Chinese Communist Party has a very clear diktat in terms of the timeline, right? I mean, in terms of what you can present and what you can't, because they realize that it impairs people's thinking, and especially the younger the person, the more influenced they can be, right? So they have very strict guidelines on what you can and cannot show kids, right? But everywhere else across the world, I mean, it's a free for all, right? I mean, the most addictive, the most dopamine hitting content is what they present, and I don't know how good that is. You know, in general, I don't think we entirely know how to deal with social media. Really, maybe 10, 20 years from now, people will look back at us and kind of think that, it was almost like there was cocaine available everywhere, and just we just went sniffing around. You know, I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
mean, it's been called, there's a whole TikTok generation. I mean, of course, TikTok was the first one who came up with this whole, short video content. But then we saw the likes of Snapchat, Instagram, Meta, all of these guys follow suit in a very short period of time.
yeah.
And this has defined an entire generation's way of interacting with the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And and they're still seeing that kind of growth, I mean, see, if you look at Facebook right now, I mean, they're growing through acquisitions basically, right? And the rest of them as well. Google, well, I mean, who even counts Google as a consumer app anymore, right? I mean, it's more of a utilities, a pipes and infrastructure for the internet generation, right? But yeah, I mean, it'll be very interesting to see how it pans out further,
Right. Okay, so TikTok's user engagement rate, I mean, an average user spends close to 95 minutes per day
Wow,
on the app,
crazy.
right? And so TikTok has been banned in India since 2020.
Yeah.
But India as a market, I mean, what do you think, what sort of a loss is this for TikTok, considering the sort of diversity India has to offer and sort of user base India has to offer?
Well, it's huge, right? I mean, if you think about it, India has the largest internet market in the world. I mean, we're at about, I think, what 600 million internet users right now, which is going to be 900 million in maybe 2 3 years time, right? And also, I mean, it's a market that is soon becoming monetizable as well, right? I mean, if you follow the monetization journeys of Stage or Coco FM and so on, all of them are being able to generate hard revenue from some of these folks, right? So it is definitely a loss, but I think the Indian government was absolutely right in sort of banning these Chinese apps, right? I mean, they banned 50 plus apps around that time because I think it is a safety security issue, and given everything that's panned out over the last year in China, right, where the entire startup ecosystem has imploded. I mean, it's you don't want the Chinese government, having access to all of this data and information for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that gave, as a result of this banning, that gave rise to apps like ShareChat, Moj, and
Look at
all of these
ShareChat,
guys.
300 million plus users, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Moving on to the next bit of news. After announcing a mass layoff last week, Byju has raised $250 million from its existing investors. Earlier in March this year, they had raised $800 million in funding, out of which $400 million was invested by Byju Ravindran himself. At that point, the company was valued close to $22 billion, and I think, as per some reports online, this has been a flat valuation. Byju Ravindran also commented on the press that 2022 will be the best year for the company in terms of revenue growth and profitability, regardless of the ongoing macroeconomic conditions. Now, that's a very a bold statement to make, to say the least. But what are your thoughts on it?
Well, see, EdTech had a whale of a time in 2021 when the valuations went through the roof, and there was so much of funding money available, right? But nobody expected that this will continue, right? I mean, 2022 has been a period of realization for everyone that, hey, I mean, we perhaps went a little too far, and so you're seeing a return to things like profitability, unit economics, and all of that stuff, right? Byju's, we used to joke that it was almost like every roundup we covered, they
Byju's.
had some acquisition or the other, including Akash
Right.
as well, right? Akash, famously, I mean, that acquisition, there is some controversy around whether the money has actually hit the bank, etc.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they recently posted that Akash has doubled its profit. Sorry, yeah, Akash and Great Learning, they've been doubling their revenues since acquisition. And Byju's whole K-12 business, all of it will be consolidated under one group. and that revenue is also growing at 150%.
See, the central premise of edtech, right, which is that, hey, there is such a mass of young people in this country who need education, and obviously you can't reach all of these people through, building brick and mortar, schools and colleges, right? And also, I mean, the best learning can be democratized, right? I mean, you can have the best teachers, maybe not teaching 50 people in a class, but 5,000 people online, right? So that premise still holds, still holds true for sure. And wait till some of these guys internationalize. I mean, I think now with the pressures for profitability and so on, I think a lot of people will look abroad as well and look at the US market, right? I mean, Byju's has already acquired a couple of companies there
Right.
as well. So yeah, I mean, once they internationalize, that $20 billion valuation will start to look a little more palatable, I would say, right? I mean, even in India, I mean, it's online edtech is about what 2% of the market, right? Which is which still has such a headroom to grow, and so this year for sure, I mean, it'll be interesting. We'll have to wait and watch in terms of what some of these tech firms, the larger ones, will do, especially, right? Byju's, Unacademy, and so on.
Yeah, I think it was last year, right? Byju had also gotten into a partnership with the Qatar government to set up, institutions there, research centers there, and it's also leveraging the FIFA World Cup
Yeah.
as a platform for it. That aside, Limeroad, which is a fashion commerce startup, had raised total of 350 crore rupees in venture capital, and last week it got acquired for almost one tenth of that value by V-Mart. Besides Tiger Global, the social shopping sensation was also backed by Matrix Partners India and Lightspeed Ventures, among others. And getting after raising funds for some valuation, getting acquired for less than one tenth of it. Now that's a huge blow, right? And it also shows how the entire fashion tech space is such a competitive market, and we only have like few major players in the space. So with larger fashion marketplaces like Myntra and Ajio being the only major players in the industry, vertical focused players have like really lost out, right? And Limeroad's slump in sales is further proof that cracking the online fashion business in India is much more difficult than what it looks like.
I won't agree that vertical marketplaces are having a hard time, right? In general, I think you're going to see a lot more verticalized marketplaces emerging, especially with the launch of ONDC and so on, right? Because this general everything available in one store, like an Amazon or a Flipkart or even a Myntra kind of a thing, is going to get is going to come under some pressure post ONDC, right? And of course that is saying a lot. I mean, considering ONDC has to launch and also, I mean, has to scale, to its potential. But it is definitely tough. I mean, I remember when e-commerce started, properly in India, 2007, 2008, there were plenty of players, right? Jabong, I remember, Shopclue. Shopclue was a unicorn as well, right? Plenty of them folded up because it's a very difficult business to run, and if you raise a lot of money and you have rising valuations, things can very quickly go out of hand if you don't have a handle on things, right? So yeah, I mean, you will see consolidation in that respect, but you will definitely also see verticalized marketplaces emerge. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this will be something interesting to see play out. Also, the CCI flagged Google's anti-competitive practices of maximizing its user base as the cost of smaller app developers. And I think towards this, they've imposed, I think, 1,337 crore rupee fine. Indian developers note that the CCI's order on Google will have far-reaching implications as it not only imposes a penalty, but also mandates Google to stop its malpractices to suppress competitive Indian applications. This includes allowing handset makers to allow installing an alternate version of its Android without pressurizing them or incentivizing them in any way. They also they also stated that they shouldn't deny access to its Play Services APIs, which might cause certain disadvantages to OEMs. And and in addition to that, CCI also wants Google to allow developers to distribute their own app stores through the Google Play Store. Now, we have seen many folks speak out in favor of this, and I think back in 2020, even Vijay Shekhar Sharma suggested a
Yeah.
council be formed which promotes Indian apps and their
Yeah.
OEMs.
See, given how skilled India is at digital infrastructure at population scale, I think if I were Google, I would be really scared. You know, Seriously, I mean, I don't think they should mess with India on that front, right? I mean, we've been saying this forever and ever that, we should solve this through innovation and negotiation and not through some kind of regulation, right? But if it's come to it, then so be it, right? Definitely, Indian developers need a better sort of we definitely need more TLC from Google for sure, right? I mean, better support, better enablement, and some transparency in the practices, right? Which we have called out plenty of times on the podcast earlier as well. We should perhaps link to an older episode where I
Yeah.
spoke at length about it.
All right, so moving on to some fundraise news. Elevation Capital led a $13 million funding round in an ex-partners AI SaaS startup called Drivetrain. Drivetrain was founded in 2021 and it integrates with over 200 business collaboration softwares to help businesses predict revenue and margin growth. It's also one of the very few SaaS startups in India that are leveraging AI to build more innovative products for other businesses. And Drivetrain's co-founder and CEO Alok Goel calls the platform a Google Maps for business growth. Now, I mean that's something pretty cool to say, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. And Alok is an old hand, right? I mean, he was earlier the chief product officer at Redbus, if I remember correctly. Redbus then got acquired by Lastbus for about 120 or 130 million way back when. Then he was CEO of Freecharge, and Freecharge got sold to Axis Bank or I think one other entity before that for about $300 million. He's been an investor the past few years, and now he's back for his third startup gig, right? I mean, pretty fantastic. So Drivetrain has a very bold and ambitious vision, I should say, right? A lot of others have tried to build this CEO's dashboard, one MIS that can help you optimize the various levers, right? Identify what has to be tweaked and, literally look at it every morning and sort of do that. I mean, by integrating various different applications that have data about your organization and so on, right? So yeah, I mean, I would be really keen to understand, how this works. So probably we should have a look on the podcast sometime,
Yeah.
talk about his startup journey and also, how he's building this startup as well.
Right. And I mean, he's also one of those guys who has seen all sides of it, right? He has been an
Yeah,
operator turned, I would say,
operator, entrepreneur, investor,
investor,
pretty much
seen
everything. Yeah,
everything.
one
Yeah.
of the OGs.
All right. And apart from that, last week was also pretty great. I mean, in general, as I mentioned earlier, the number of deals were considerably larger in sizes. Apart from Drivetrain, we had Aether Energy that raised 400 crore rupees or $50 million approximately from Caladium Investments and Herald Square Ventures. B2B startup Global Fair raised $20 million from Lightspeed Venture Partners, Sama Capital, India Quotient, AUM Ventures, and others. Tring, which is a celebrity engagement platform, raised $5 million from Kalari Capital, Bloom Founders Fund, Redbrook PT, and Sujit Kumar of Udan. Anything on these fundraisers you'd like to add?
Yeah, a couple of things for sure, right? I mean, B2B commerce is thriving. Seriously. I love that there is so much focus in that, and we've spoken to more than a few of these folks as well, right? Off Business, Network, Bizongo, and a few others as well. And we have an episode on B2B commerce coming up quite shortly, right? We'll publish in a couple of weeks for sure. Speaking of Bloom Ventures, well, we have Narrowcast by Bloom Ventures team, which is a collection of startup podcast episodes from the year. And if you flip to page
Page 86.
number 86, is that it? 86, 86, where are you? 86. Oh, all right. If you flip to page number 86, you see Startup Operator right there. Conversation with Deepak Abbott, one of my favorite, operators in the ecosystem. We spoke about growth and how to build a growth function, how to scale it, and so on. And Deepak has seen that across stages, right? 0 to 100 million and beyond. So yeah, I mean, this is a fantastic initiative by the Bloom Ventures team. Thank you to Sajid Pai, to Misha, and to others in their team as well for bringing this out. I think a lot of good content as well. There are plenty of others you might recognize. Jivraj of Indian Silicon Valley. There's also Digjay, who runs the VCpreneur podcast. I mean, this is a fantastic initiative. I think
Yeah.
all of us are part of this, small but significant community of podcasters who are trying to bring up, startup stories, curate wisdom from the Indian startup ecosystem. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much to the Bloom team for this. Do check out the book. It's available on Amazon. We'll link to it in the description.
Yeah. All right. So last week, Bisu, who is the co-founder and CEO of Coco FM, recently through a Twitter post announced that Coco FM has crossed an active paying subscription count of 2 million users, right? And this is a great, great milestone to achieve,
Fantastic
firstly.
milestone.
But
Yeah.
also in the past, Roshan, you've spoken a lot about how India is moving on from a DAO market to an ARPU market.
See, I think we've severely underestimated the spending power of tier two, tier three India for sure, right? And these people, they will spend, right, if you show value for them. And look at Kuku, right? I mean, it's content, and who would have thought that these folks will spend on content? 2 million. That's pretty amazing, really. It's a very optimistic sign for the ecosystem in general, and I would love for consumer apps for sure, right, to really thrive in this ecosystem. I'm really curious about the next 50, 100 unicorns that will be
Right.
built on the base of this for sure.
Yeah, and also for Coco FM, I mean, the first million took 18 months, right? And the second million came in less than 4 months' time,
Yeah.
right? And that's some scale.
Do check out the Coco FM episode we did with Bisu. It's a very, very interesting journey, I would say. He mentioned, since we spoke about Google as well,
Yeah,
right?
thinking
Around the
about that.
Series A time, they're talking to an investor, and lo and behold, they find that their app has been
Moved from
kicked
the
out
Play
of
Store.
the store, right? And they had to spend a lot of sleepless nights to get the app back again on the store. Fantastic journey, really, I should say, right? I mean, since then, they've done a couple of fundraisers and
Yeah.
also 2 million paying subscribers, which is a phenomenal milestone, I should say.
Well, congratulations to the Coco FM team. But yeah, Roshan, before we sign off, why don't you take us to some of the conversations you have lined up for this week?
So we have a couple of interesting podcasts lined up. We have Dr. Marcus Rani, who is the co-founder of Human Edge. He's also an author. He authored a book of the similar title as well. And he spends his time on longevity, wellness, increasing health span, and so on. These are subjects that I'm really passionate about. So I really want to nerd out with him on all of these things. And of course, we have Anand Jain, who's the co-founder of CleverTap, appearing on the podcast sometime as well. We have Apremeya, who's the co-founder of Koo. So we have plenty of interesting episodes. We'll also shoot a bunch of these episodes live, right? So that'll be an interesting experience, and maybe some of you will get to be in the audience and ask questions yourself. Let us know what you think of that idea. More good and exciting content coming up. Folks, I've asked you before, but please rate and review us on all of your platforms: Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you catch these episodes. Let me know once you've done it, and I'll send you a copy of the Narrowcast or any other book of your choice, right? For sure. It helps more people discover our content, which of course we work kind of hard. I won't say really, really hard, but somewhat hard to produce every week. So yeah, that'll be amazing.
Also, we're planning to host a very chill evening in the month of December, and we just would like to ask you whether you'd be open to such sort of an engagement, and if you were to attend, what would you want to get out of it, so that it will help us plan better.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, apart from that, wish you a very happy Diwali.
Will that be like a BYOB kind of
It depends on how many
event,
people
or
sign up.
beer on Gunjan Saha for sure, right? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, would love to. But yeah, folks, apart from that, have a great Diwali, and we'll see you again next Sunday.
Happy Diwali. Don't haggle with all of the small stores and vendors and hawkers out on the street, right? Give them what they want, keep them happy. It'll come back manifold to you for sure, right? See you again.